All right. In this tutorial, we will talk about the second type of flow control statements, which is loops. And we specifically will focus on the for loop, although there are some other types of loops like the while loop and do while loop. But for the purposes of this course, we will focus only on the for loop. And again, I encourage you to explore the remaining types of loops on your own. So that you can be aware of all the different types. Okay, now to better understand loops and why do we need loops in our different programs, let's take this example. Right? Let's assume that we had a Python list. Okay, and we've talked about lists, and this list is named grades, and it contains 100 grades. Right? 78, 96, 92, all the way to 97. Right? Now, as you know, the index of the first element starts at 0 all the way to 99. That is 100 grades or 100 items. And we wanted to create a program simply sum up all the grades in the list, right? And then average them out, and then simply print out the average for the user, right? Now, one way we could do that is to simply start by creating a variable called total, okay, and set it equal to uh, all the grades in the list. And we do that by referencing each grade individually or separately. Okay, so we start by referencing the first grade in the list. How do we do that? By first specifying the list name, which is grades, followed, as we agreed, by the index number of the first element, which is 0. So grades of 0 will be evaluated to 78 by Python, right? Now we reference the second element in the list, which is 96. How? By specifying the list name grades of or square brackets and the index number, which is 1. So grades of 1 will be evaluated to 96. We keep doing that. Grade of 2 is 92, right? 84, 89, and 70. And we keep doing that manually for all the grades in the list all the way to the last item in the list, which is grades of 99, and that is 97. So what we actively did is that we have referenced 100 list items manually. Now, as as you can see, this is completely inefficient, right? But let's stick to the plan. Now, after we've added all the items to the total variable, right? We have created another variable called average, and we set it equal to the value of total, which is the sum of all the grades in the list, divided by the number of the items or the grades in the list in order to get the average, right? So total divided by 100. Now, once we get the average, we will use the print statement and print out the average, which, for example, can be, I don't know, 78. And here we get the average. So, as we have mentioned, this is completely inefficient. It's a waste of time, right? And there must be some other way to achieve the same goal in this amount of time and less effort. Well, less effort, right? So, to do that, we can use something that's called the for loop or the for statement. All right. Now let's see how we can actually only write two simple statements to achieve the same result that we've gotten using the previous approach, right? So how do we do that? We start by first writing the for keyword, which is a Python keyword, right? Next, we use a variable, any variable name you want. You can use any name you want, as long as you are sticking to the rules for variable naming that we have discussed previously. Okay, so it can be X, it can be car, it can be rice, anything. This is basically the variable that will hold each item in the list that we are going to loop through at each iteration, and it will keep changing. All right, and we will see how in a moment. Now, the third part is the n keyword, right? So for xn, fourth part, sorry, is the list that we want to loop through, or simply the data structure that we want to loop through. In this case, it is the grades list. You see, it's the name of the list here. After that, we use the colon sign, right? And then we go down and we leave some white space to indicate that these statements here, which is basically only one statement, belong to this for loop. Okay? The same way we did for the if statement. We leave some white space, or we indent the statement that we want to be that we want them to belong to the if statement or the for loop. Okay? Now, how many statements in total in the body of the for loop? Only one. Okay, now what is this statement? Simply total equals to total plus x. Now let's track the execution of this for loop and see how Python actually executes this for loop, right? So first, for x in grades, Python will create a variable called x, and it will set it initially to the value 78, which is the first element in the list, as you can see here, 78. Okay, next we go down to the statements in the body of the for loop, right? It is total is equal to total plus x. And remember, when we talk about the assignment or the equal operator, the right side is evaluated first and then the left side. So total is equal to total plus x. Initially, total will be 0. It's an empty variable, right? So 0 plus x. What is x? It's 78. Therefore, the total will be initially 78. All right, next, Python will go back to the header of the for loop. This first part here is called the header of the for loop. Okay, now Python will automatically update the x variable, right, to the second element in the list, which is 96. All right, next, Python will go to the body of the for loop, which is total equal to total plus x. Can we have some other statements in the body of the for loop? Absolutely. But in this case, we only needed one, and therefore we only have one in the body of the for loop. So the statement is total is equal to total plus x. Okay, what is the current value of total? 78, right? 78 plus the current value of x, which is 96. And therefore the total will be updated to 174. All right, next, Python will go back to the header and update the variable x. What is x? 92, which is the third element in the list, right? Next, we go to the body. Total is equal to total plus x. So 174 plus 92, which is 266. The same logic will continue executing until Python reaches the end of the list, which is the 99th, or sorry, the 100th element, or the element with the index 99, which is 97. And by the end of this for loop, right, we will be getting the total that uh, we are after, right? After that, we exit the for loop, right? And we execute these two statements, this and this. And remember, these two statements do not, again, do not belong to the for loop. Why? Because they are not indented. They are at the same indentation level. You see this vertical bar here? They are at the same indentation level as the for loop. Therefore, they don't belong to it. So what statements do we have here? First is average is equal to total divided by 100. So We are simply referencing the value of the variable total and divide it by 100, which again can be 76, for example. Next, we execute the next statement, print average. So we'll get 76 in the to the screen. All right. So as you can see, using only two statements, we've managed to achieve what we have achieved using almost 100 or 102 statements. Okay. And pay attention to the icons I'm using here, right? The looping icons, along with the 100x, to indicate that this loop goes on for 100 times, or these two statements will be executed 100 times. All right. Now at this point, I encourage you to create some lists, loop through them, and then execute some other operations to your liking, right? Just to deepen your understanding of how these statements are actually executed. All right. In the next part, uh, we will have some examples of some if statements and for loops to actually how to see how they actually work. All right. See you in the next tutorial.